increasingly involved relationship between you and your audience member, you and your reader, then you can actually distribute that content, the same amount of content, the same 300 pages that you would in book form, but you're doing it in a way that's much more consumable. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Grow Rogue podcast. I'm Reade. I'm here with Nikki, and it looks a little bit different today. We're in our own offices. I'm in the podcast studio. Nikki's in her office, but we're really excited to have this conversation with you today.
Yes, awesome. So today we're going to talk about how newsletters drive new business.
We're going to talk about the different types of newsletters. We're going to talk about different ways to drive revenue from your newsletter. We're going to talk about some common mistakes and some missed opportunities we see from brands all the time and how you can remedy those so that you're not wasting all of those marketing dollars on things that are not going to actually pay off for you.
Okay, so first off, Reade, let's just talk about the different kinds of newsletters that we can have anyways.
Right, and this is an important thing to start with. We've talked about it before, but it's going to determine how you actually position products or services for sale. And so just to summarize really quickly the different types of newsletters.
And before you do that, let's preface that we're speaking about business to business, B2B newsletters. I meant to make this this point last time we were talking about this. This is mainly talking about business to business newsletters.
So it's really important to understand what type of newsletter, and this is specifically in the context of like B2B newsletters, right? And it's not to say that, you know, a personal newsletter is not relevant or can't help you in a B2B context, but we are definitely gearing this in the direction of helping to grow your business. So just to talk about some of the different types of newsletters. So there's your common ones, right? There's like the company updates where it's like, hey, this is what we've done over the last month or so. And that has its place. That's perfectly useful. There's the educational newsletter, which is, hey, look, here's a topic. We're gonna share our insight on it, and we're gonna try to help you understand or learn something new. There's the story-based newsletter. These are fantastic as well. These are where maybe you're interviewing somebody or you're spotlighting a client or a case study, and that can be really impactful as well. And then we have what I'm going to call the curated newsletter, or the news style newsletter, where we're bringing in content from around the internet. Maybe it's breaking news or new information, or new developments out of Washington that impact your industry or whatever it is, but it's going to be other outside resources that you're bringing in and that you're sharing to your audience. Now, there's certainly what I'd call the hybrid, which is a mix of those, and frankly, the Grow Rogue newsletter is a bit of a hybrid of all of those. But just to give a primer and a background on the different types of newsletters and the different types of issues of newsletters that you can actually put out.
That's super helpful. So given all that you just said, if you had to put a percentage on what you should do, right? Because in our last episode, we talked about call to actions. We don't want to put a call to action in every newsletter. So say if a company is sending 2 emails a month, what percentage do you think, and what should they put in there? Should they do a call to action once a month? Should it be every time if they're only doing 2? So help me understand, or help the audience understand, if they're sending 2 emails a month, what should be in those emails?
Now that's a good question. So what we're describing here is, what goes into a newsletter and how should you break it down? What's like the right content mix? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about the content recipe of each newsletter. And so here's how I would suggest it gets thrown into the mix. And like a recipe, in this recipe, it doesn't matter the order in which the ingredients go into the bowl, right? So I'm gonna say that this is up to the chef to decide exactly what proportion and exactly what order this content goes in there. But a good mix would be some original content, some original idea or a thought that you, the newsletter author, or your brand is putting forth, right? That needs to be included in almost every email, or it needs to be in a really good balance. I would like to see some curated content in almost every we'll say every chunk of newsletters, right? Whether you do it on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, but there ought to be something from around the internet that you found useful or that you think would be useful to your audience. I think a good percentage of your emails should also include some client or case studies, some success stories from your clients, and then I think I'm going to say 5% of your email real estate should be dedicated to what the reader should do next in a way that positions you for a sales opportunity. And this is the call to action that you mentioned, Nikki. This is where we're giving the reader something that they can do that actually would drive their interest or increase the likelihood that they're going to take that next step and do something that puts them closer to doing business with us.
Yeah, I love that answer. Let's also touch a little bit more on case studies. We have case studies on our website. We also include them in emails. So talk to me a little bit about case studies and why we use them and why they really are so valuable.
The reason that it's so valuable is because it's the best form of social proof that you can produce. And what I mean by that is that you have done something, your business has offered something so valuable that your client, your customer, has taken time out of their day to explain to the world that, hey, this is where I was before. This was our before state. This is what the brand, this is what Reade and Nikki, and this is what Rogue Pine did to help us grow. And this was the after result. This was the end result, of which I am very pleased, right? And then a potential customer of yours, a reader of your newsletter, of your email marketing, a recipient of your email marketing, is able to then see themselves in the shoes of your client's success story. And that is super powerful because that's what they're looking for, right? Everybody has a problem. Everybody has a chasm in between where they are and where they want to be. And as a business, as a service provider, as a SaaS product, right? You are the bridge from where they are to where they want to be. And by showing them, hey, look, this is how we've helped other people bridge that gap between where they are and where they want to be. It becomes much more tangible to them, and it makes them much more able to see them actually working with you and using your service or using your platform so that they can solve their own problems.
Yeah, I like that. It's much more tangible. It's saying, hey, we're not just blowing smoke. It's actually really worked, and our systems and our processes, they actually work. And this is exactly what we've done for a similar industry. We can do it for you as well. So I love that. But when you were describing newsletters and what you put in it and the little recipe, it made me think, and this is probably the most duh statement ever, but it made me think of newsletters are just a shrunken down version of a book. The reason we like books so much, it really is, like a lot of books are curated information. It's how that person, that author perceives the information. And also giving them, you learn from it. The way you were describing the newsletter is exactly how I would describe a book. You want a little bit of education in the book. You want a little bit of other people's idea in the book or in the newsletter. That's exactly what a book is. So I think that's why it's been around for so long, because they just work.
Well, I completely agree. So what I would describe that as is a newsletter is a serialized book reading experience.
Yeah.
And if you think about like James Clear's newsletter,
yeah,
there's no new information in the newsletter, right? If you've read his book, then you know what's coming in his newsletter, right? He sends out new information every week, but it's all stuff that he's just pulled from his other writings.
Yeah, and that's why we've had several clients that have written books. Actually, I'm willing to bet like 95% of our clients have a book, or have had a book or written a book. Like that's just where we find ourselves. And it's so fascinating because as the consumer, you do want this information, but I mean we don't have time to read all these books, all these new principles. And again, they're not really new, they're just that author's perception of it. But that's why newsletters are so great, and that's why even B2B newsletters have such a good impact, because people want that information. They just want it in bite-sized chunks. And so that is a really good way to deliver your message instead of buying or selling a book, which is great. But newsletter, it captures, you're able to communicate with your audience so much more than a book.
Well, think what was the stat that we heard recently, and I'll try to find the actual stat, but it was that I think 17% of book buyers actually read even like 5 or 10 pages
Yeah.
of the book. Like it's some crazy small, we'll call it a completion percentage of any new book. And so if you think about why that is, and it's not because the information's not good, it's just it's an attention span thing, right? It's a busyness thing. So if we're able to say take that same information and stretch that out over time, and you can create a slow and or an increasingly involved relationship between you and your audience member, you and your reader, then you can actually distribute that content, the same amount of content, the same 300 pages that you would in book form, but you're doing it in a way that's much more consumable.
Newsletters are very beneficial in so many ways, but a really good one that I think flies under the radar a lot of times are product market fit. So what I mean by that is some author was writing a book and they wanted their product market fit. Like they wanted to see, hey, how do you think for this? Or is this good? Because you won't get enough polls for titles of books and things like that. But if you have an engaged audience already and you're thinking about doing another book or another a course or things like that, and you want to involve your audience and your email list and things like that, it's a great way to do that. Because instead of writing a book and then being like, well, hope this hits the same as my first one, it's a great way to get that audience feedback almost of is your stuff good? You don't want to go down this rabbit hole. And we've had clients do this. They think their stuff is good, and it is. We just haven't figured out the right fit for that product market yet. And email is a great way to do that.
Well, let's take a scientific approach to this, right? So let's say, for instance, 52 chapters in a book or 12 chapters in a book. I don't know, whatever. And you're going to break it up into 52 chunks that you're going to deliver. You're going to deliver these concepts that you think ought to go into that next book. And I know we're getting a little off the track of how to drive sales, but I think this is really useful.
But to me though, if your product is not good, whether it be whatever your product you're selling from B2B, like if it's not good, nobody will buy. So why would you not try to figure out as soon as you can what people want?
Right. So think about that. Yes. So think about this as a beta test opportunity for your ideas, right? For your concepts.
Yes.
Maybe this is a way to flesh out an actual business concept, not just a book, right? Not just a methodology, but you've got you've got the idea broken up into 12 general chapters or sections, and you're going to deliver a piece of that in each email. And with each email on a weekly basis, right, 52 different pieces of content, you're going to get data, and the data is going to be in the form of reply rate, open rate, click-through rate. And you're going to be able to, like a scientist, observe, okay, this particular topic phrased this way was more well received than this topic, or this topic phrased this other way. And through that process, you can use that data to actually tweak the rest of the content, or to help you formulate that new concept for a business or a line of business or a new service or a new platform, whatever it is that you're developing. But you're actually using that real hard data of your audience response to the content to create it.
Yeah, it's almost like a process of thinking. Like you get to put these raw thoughts out to people who are in your network and they already are on your list, so they like something you're doing, right? And from the other side of it, it's so beneficial because people feel like they're included in it. I remember they were trying to decide a title for a book, and it was reply to the email, your favorite one, and I felt like I could be a part of it, and it was really cool to see on the consumer side. I mean, I know I said B2B, but still, like your audience side, that feeling like you're part of the book or newsletter. Okay, so earlier we talked about how we can drive sales through newsletters on different sales propositions, different things you're testing, things like that. Well, Reade, tell us about other ways that the newsletter can really like drive monetization quickly. Talk about that.
Yeah, totally. And this is why this is one of the reasons why I feel like newsletters are so powerful, because there are a number of different ways to monetize a newsletter. So look, the straightforward way of driving B2B sales, for example, is, look, you've got an engaged audience that comes back for more every time you send out an email, every week or every few weeks. And they have come to know, like, and trust you so much so that when you place that call to action of, hey, look, if you're having this problem, this is how we can help you, they click that button or they reply to the email, and you're in a sales conversation, right? That's the most straightforward way of using a newsletter to drive sales. But that's only scratching the surface of what one can do or what a brand can do with a healthy newsletter, with a healthy email list, right? A subscriber base. A few of those are you can sell sponsorships, right? If you've got, and I don't know that there's a specific number. In fact, the more tightly focused your audience is, the smaller your list can be to still be able to monetize it in a meaningful way, meaning you can drive meaningful revenue. But the sponsorship, to describe sponsorships, if you've got an audience that is paying attention to you and you've got another brand or another product that you can be aligned with, obviously that's complementary to what your business and what your brand offers, you can simply charge a flat rate to be promoted in the next newsletter. Nikki and I both subscribe to a number of newsletters, and one of them that I really like is the Josh Spector newsletter. I believe it's called the I Want to Know. No, it's called the For the Interested. His podcast is the I Want to Know, and his newsletter is For the Interested. And in it, every one of his newsletters is, it's got a brought to you by section, and he charges a flat rate. I think you get to be in 2 or 3 of his newsletters, which he puts out daily. I want to say the guy charges like $500 per placement, and he's got 3 or 4 placements in each newsletter, sends those things out 3 or 4 times a week, and that's driving some significant revenue for him. And he's able to do that because he's got a loyal audience that opens the emails often and regularly and at a high rate, and they click on the links that he sends people to. So that's one way of monetizing a newsletter that's outside of the most straightforward way. Another way is using, Nikki mentioned this, I think, earlier, direct affiliate links, right? So it's similar to the sponsored post or the sponsored newsletters, but these are directly to products or services with which you have affiliate relationships. I'll give a good example. We have an affiliate relationship with a tool called Grain. Grain is an AI call recorder, right? So it joins a Zoom call as an additional attendee. It records that video, that Zoom call, and then it transcribes and it provides an AI-driven summary. We love it. It's awesome. And I actually reached out to one of the founders and said, hey, look, we love this tool. We would like to promote you guys to our audience. Do you have an affiliate program set up? And they were like, we don't have one right now, but we'll let you know as soon as we do. And then a few months later, I got an email and they were like, hey, thank you for letting us know you're interested in this. Here's a code that if you send your subscribers to this, we'll give you a cut of the revenue. And so whenever we mention Grain as an awesome tool that you should definitely use, we get a little cut of revenue every time someone signs up for that service. So that's a good example of how to use affiliates to drive some revenue from your newsletter.
Okay, so after those two, are there any other ways we can monetize a newsletter?
Yeah, so we're kind of bringing things back full circle to our business and how we actually use our own services and our own, our own knowledge and our own skills to monetize a newsletter. So let's say, for example, you've already not exhausted, but you've gone through the first three and you feel like, hey, I really would like to have another way where we can retain all of that revenue and utilize that as a sales opportunity for our business. There's a popular way is our courses and coaching programs and consulting. And I always want to make sure that we address these, but give that disclaimer. And Nikki, you know this. We've dealt with this before. A lot of people feel like they say, look, we've got a good business. We know that our stuff, we're really, experienced in this area. So let's just throw a course together. But I think you are probably nodding along that it's just not that simple, right? So while many feel like, hey, putting together a course or putting together a master class or a workshop, which we've done and we do like as a monetization strategy for
it just has to be done
audience,
right.
You can't just build it and they will come, right? You want to build that almost like you're building a SaaS product or something that needs to be sold and delivered on its own with some support. And so going back to what we were discussing in the beginning of building out a product using customer feedback, just know before you invest the time and money, and even if you don't feel like it's as much money, you're still going to invest a lot of time in building out a course. You're going to want to make sure that you do that with a lot of customer data and a lot of market data about what they actually want before you build it and try to promote it to your audience. So
and
those
bringing
are a couple I
it
just want to touch on.
Really full circle. That's what I was trying to say in the beginning. Before you build all these things, say you have an audience, and before you build everything over here, you gotta ask what they want. You gotta have that communication with your audience and what they want, because we've seen it time and time again. We have people with great, healthy email subscribing lists, and then they build a course and it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because it's not what they wanted. Right. And so these things can be caught and built with the audience of what they want. And I think it all boils down to having a newsletter, but also building the newsletter subscriber list. Like, you gotta, let's touch on that. Reade, like, how do we get audience? And one that I'm really familiar with, and it's the most popular, is a lead magnet. So let's talk, Reade. Let's talk about having a newsletter. Okay, but let's just say we started out, or maybe we have a few hundred people and it's just getting started. How do we keep that list healthy? So talk about ways that obviously sending newsletters each week and month there is healthy, but how can we grow it? So talk on those two things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, right? Okay, we know how we're going to make money from the thing, but there's nobody there opening the emails, right? And so, we absolutely have to start there. And this is sort of that annoying, almost like doctor answer, right? Like, it depends. But I'm going to say that assuming you are either new to it or you are new to really investing in this seriously, the first thing you've got to do is put out good, helpful content consistently. Without that, anything else you try to do, it's going to come across as a cheap relationship that you've got with your subscribers, right? If you start pushing product too quickly, if you start pushing sales too quickly, and you haven't established that trust and that credibility with your audience through a lot of content that you've put out that genuinely helps people, it's not, it's going to land on deaf ears, and in fact it's going to create sort of brand damage, and you don't want that to happen.
One thing that I've started seeing a lot more recently, and I think it's because of that thing you just said about ruining your brand. When you sign up for a newsletter, and I've seen this very often, you'll get that first email and it gives expectations of when you can expect to see this email. What is to be expected by signing up for this email? Because nobody wants to be sold 24/7. Like, I don't even care if you're Apple. Like, I don't want to be sold that 24/7. So when you sign up for newsletter, I have seen it often. And I think it's good practice to say, hey, by signing up, this is what you're getting. You'll get so many a month or so many a week and things like that. So speak on that and what good practices are of that.
Look, and I'll preface by saying, like, if you're just getting started, just get started, right? Because you're going to figure out the right cadence, and you're going to figure out the right rhythm for your brand. And this is one of those things that, like, side note, if you need help with this, the consistency thing is more important than anything else, right? If you can only go at a monthly publishing schedule, then that's what you should do. You're not going to move very fast that way, but that's okay. You don't want to publish a lot and then go dark and then publish again, right? Or you don't want to publish too many times in a row and then go dark. So that's one thing. But to Nikki's point, establishing and clarifying to your audience, and we like to do this as a part of a welcome sequence. Whenever somebody subscribes, we say, look, this is the type of information that we're going to be sending at this pace on this schedule, right? We publish a newsletter every Tuesday. I'm a little, I play around with the time of day we send them, because we're still figuring out the right time. And frankly, even if the time even matters, the Tuesday publishing schedule is for us. It's to hold us accountable to a date on the calendar that we have to have everything ready so that we can hit publish. So telling your audience, every Tuesday morning, you can expect to get this. And inside that email is going to be this type of information. And if you have questions, here's where you can reach out or give feedback and stuff like that. So priming your audience for when to receive information is going to increase the likelihood that there's some anticipation there, and that they're going to be ready to open and engage and all the stuff we want them to do.
So as we wrap this up, Reade, let's talk about what you and I were talking about the other day, where you said the most frustrating thing you look at and you talk to other business owners about, and it's a frustrating aspect. They have blogs and they have social posts and they're engaging. They understand it's important, but they don't have a newsletter. And to me, or what you have told me, that's completely wrong, right? So you see it's important, you're engaging, you're writing blogs, but how are we capturing the audience? And speak on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a shame to see, right? Because it's such a missed opportunity. And look, and I'll give the background, right? Nikki and I were talking about, hey, I saw this brand. I mentioned her. I saw this brand. I love what they're doing. Their content is really good. They're pretty active on social media. They've got a well-designed website. They seem to do something really interesting in their industry. But I could not find a way where I could subscribe to, get updates of our weekly blog or whatever. That's kind of the standard, 2000s call to action to get on an email list. I couldn't even find that. And
so what does that mean in plain text? If you're a business, what does that mean? Those people come and they leave.
You're losing them. So I'm a good example, right? I would have loved to kind of stayed in the loop of new content that's being put out by that brand, but I don't even know how I can do that. Right now, they may have a strong argument. They may say, well, we're not doing this for that reason. We're doing this for SEO. Okay, that's fine. I mean, go see what happens next time you do a Google search and you get AI results instead of, the actual top performing web page. That's a different conversation for a different day. But the big idea here is that they had my interest, right? They piqued my interest, but I'm not ready to purchase from them today. So I'm now gone, right? They're kind of out of my world. The only reason I remember them at all is because I'm using them as an example of what not to do. But if they even had, hey, subscribe here to get our weekly updates, which is the bare bones, bare minimum call to action, they would have had me as a potential lead, right? I may have spent some money with them one day, right? And so that's a lesson, right? If you're investing in social media, if you're investing in creating content, it's such a simple and logical next step to say, well, let's capture that attention in a way that is truly useful and it provides, it creates an asset for us as a business, right? We've got this email list that we can nurture and monetize, if not today, then at least in the future.
Exactly. And I like to say it's a small hinge that swings a big door. It's not, everyone should be doing it. Every business, period. Like, it's not, like you mentioned, they might be doing SEO. Well, they can still do newsletters. What's so beautiful about newsletters is you can do it simultaneously with anything. Yeah. Anything. In fact, it drives other things. So that is, it's, and I wasn't saying I'm frustrated with these businesses. It's a frustrating thing to watch.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity.
It's a missed opportunity of such as yourself. Like you could have been a buyer in 6 months. Who knows, right? Yeah. Whatever their sales cycle is. So,
well, it was a SaaS product that we might have had. It may benefit our business. And look, just to put it simply, guys, we have two metrics that drive everything for our agency, for our business. It's sales and it's subscribers. We think that's so important. Like we think that much of the importance that if we're not able to drive the sale, then if we can drive a subscriber, if we can drive subscriber growth, that is second only to sales in value to us from a marketing and sales standpoint for our own business. So that should tell you at least something.
Exactly. And let's get even more transparent and talk about how we've actually decided to eliminate some social channels because it's not, we're reading the numbers, we're doing the research as we should, and it's just not producing the outcome. As much time is being spent on it. So we're buckling down. And when Reade says there's two objectives, one could look at that and say, we're an agency model, we were, and there's so many objectives. And I think that's what's wrong. I really do believe in business. So many people, they have so many different objectives. We're actually achieving nothing.
Yep.
And we have nothing.
I completely agree. Yeah. Too many different targets is like death to.
Yeah. I mean, we should be thinking about one. So if you took nothing else from this episode, it really is find one or two objectives and hit that. And then, I mean, you really do want to take it as like a foundation and add to it. And that's what we've done. And we've been transparent on here before. Our business has looked very different in these last 5 years because we're adding to it and we're not trying to do all at once.